Hello and welcome to South Carolina's episode of Voices of Agriculture. I'm your host, Reggie Hall, from the historic Springdale Racecourse in Camden, South Carolina. During this episode, we'll talk about the equine industry in South Carolina, everything from steeplechases to barrel races, and everything in between. We'll also go into the kitchen of a historic restaurant here in the Camden area. We'll meet our outstanding farmer in the field, and then we'll close with our beautiful palmetto portraits. All that and more coming up in just a moment. You think of horses and you may think instinctively of Tennessee or Kentucky, but South Carolina has weather that's beautiful year-round, which is why a number of famous trainers bring their horses here to train them through the winter months before they participate in Triple Crown type of events. Of course, that plus steeplechases and others make South Carolina's equine industry important to the state's economy. That's right, when the call to the post is sounded, that music typically means money is pouring into the state's economy. South Carolina's equine industry generates millions of dollars for the state's economy in the form of pleasure horses, working horses, steeplechasing, and flat track racing and training. Hope Cooper, Executive Director of the National Steeplechase Museum in Camden, South Carolina, says horses are one of the three foundations to the area's strong economic base.
There's horses, history, and hospitality. That's what we pride ourselves in, and we'll really nurture all those industries as much as we can.
The equestrian population is prevalent throughout South Carolina, with larger populations in the Aiken and Camden areas. In fact, the area surrounding Camden has more horses per capita than any other county in the state. That's one factor that helped several nonprofit organizations establish equestrian-oriented facilities and services in that area. Another factor is the region's consistent sandy soil, creating an easy footing for horses in training.
The Piedmont of South Carolina, with its wonderful sandy soil, this coastal plain area in particular, we pride ourselves on what's called footing, and that is what's underground for these horses to work on. And whether you are in the woods in Camden, South Carolina, out on the track, or in a show ring, this beautiful sandy, loamy soil is just classic for the exercising of horses.
Kip Elser is a nationally recognized trainer and bloodstock agent who says South Carolina is a great place to train horses.
The climate, which is good, but we have enough of a season that horses go through the real season that they need for their health. Then you have the sandy soil to train over, which is absolutely wonderful and uniform for horses' legs. Then you have the various turf courses and all the space to move around in. If you don't get them ready here, you have no excuses.
Elser, originally from Pennsylvania, says South Carolina's geography and topography allows him the opportunity to take horses from their first days of training all the way to national championships across the country.
They come in here as children starting their first day of kindergarten, and we take them from there through high school and get them ready to go to college and compete in the big world.
Horse training, steeplechase, and flat track racing are among the more recognized equestrian sports in South Carolina. In fact, familiar thoroughbred names like Ruffian, Forgo, and Damascus each trained in South Carolina. The Colonial Cup steeplechase is one of the last races on the national circuit and is deemed to be the most prestigious, highlighted by the $100,000 Marion DuPont Scott Colonial Cup trophy. It's a sport that came over from England as settlers engaged their horses on plantations as beasts of burden, and then bred and trained them for speed and endurance as beasts of sport.
The settlers, the early planters with the large farms, always were interested in horses, the breeding of horses and the racing horses. And this is pretty consistent through South Carolina. Camden certainly has been steeped in the racing industry ever since the very early 1900s.
The longtime association between the equestrian community and Camden's Revolutionary War heritage, drawing tourists from around the country, led local horse enthusiasts to build the National Steeplechase Museum in Camden.
We are the only institution in the United States that is dedicated solely to the sport of American steeplechasing.
The newest equestrian facility in the Camden area is the South Carolina Equine Park, which opened in September of 2009. It's a 40-acre center specifically designed for a full range of equestrian activities, breeds, and users, sponsored by the nonprofit South Carolina Equine Promotion Foundation. Hope Cooper is the secretary of the foundation's board of directors.
We partnered with Kershaw County government and the South Carolina Electric Cooperatives and many private donors, and we have been able to get a first-class horse facility for showing. We can accommodate any discipline, whether it's Tennessee Walker, breed associations. There's now a Southern Stock Horse Show competition. It's very popular. Quarter horse, naturally, I think will be our bread and butter. We do accommodate cattle down there. We have places for cattle pens, so we can host all the cutting and rodeo type. We can do reining. We're just very all-purpose.
The news of a new equine facility in the area open to all types of equestrian activities is good news to Michael Blewitt of Hartsville, South Carolina. Blewitt is a divisional National Cutting Horse Association world champion. The Australian-born cowboy has worked and lived in the United States for about 30 years and now runs a cutting horse training facility in South Carolina. Blewitt acknowledges the influence and attention English-oriented equestrian events have along the East Coast, and he says he would love to see a more balanced recognition of Western equestrian activities, like cutting horse, something the new equine park may be able to offer.
It doesn't really cater like Texas and Oklahoma and those western states do to the cowboy itself. And that just comes, I believe, from, it's a very entrenched English tradition, because it goes all the way back to the 13 colonies, which kind of sounds ridiculous, but it's very English orientated. Whereas over in, Texas and all the way up through the middle of the country, you got a lot of Spanish influence and cowboys and vaqueros. So those two distinct things are still very prevalent today, and it makes it a little bit tougher for cutting horse business to get promoted because of the dominance of the English, and it's so orientated towards cowboys further west you go. So it's a bit of a problem, but it's a reality. And I'd like to change that by promoting cutting out here.
There's often a misconception about Western horse shows and competitions that the greatest prize is just a blue ribbon. Blewitt says the larger shows can compete in prize money with many of the English competitions, and it's big business for local economies.
Is that there's money to be won. It's not a ribbon thing. It's just amazing how much money horses generate on a ripple effect. I mean, because first of all, most places have to hire someone to help them. And my feed bill and my hay bill is high. And for cutting, then you got to have cattle. See, and we keep a truckload, which is between 70 and 80 head there all the time. So we what we call dry lot them, like a feedlot situation. So, it costs, literally thousands of dollars a month to feed just the cattle. So yes, it's very agricultural.
Cutting horses are trained to work cattle. Blewitt uses a flag as a training aid.
This device we have in front of me here, we call a flag, and it's a training aid that helps us it doesn't take the place of cattle, but it helps us just teach the horse a pattern of stop, turn, go, stop, turn, go. It just builds a base on them and keeps us tuned up. And most trainers like to work the flag, 30 to 50% of the time. So anyway, this is what we do just to keep them ready. Just whatever this thing does, you just try to teach the horse to move with it. And you're allowed to use your feet. See, I can push her with my spur and I'll get a little check right there. Back her up just a little. Always keep the horse back on their rear end. So you back them up nice and quiet. It just takes a lot of work. It's like anything worth doing, you're going to get as much out of it as you put into it. It's fairly expensive, and it takes a lot of work to get good at it. And the better the horse, the better the cowboy or the cowgirl. So there's an old saying we have in the cutting horse business as trainers is that good horses make good cowboys.
And just as good horses make good cowboys, it's Hope Cooper's desire that a good equine facility can build stronger bonds among the many facets of the equine industry.
To fortify the fact that I don't care whether it's a backyard 15-year-old horse that your children are showing or it's a $4 million race course, product, we need to talk together, because the bottom line is we have exactly the same interest at heart, and it's so important for us to get all the aspects of the horse industry together in South Carolina, and it'll make it a stronger state.
When we come back, we'll go into a restaurant in historic Boykin, South Carolina. Our featured restaurant is just 8 miles from the Springdale Racecourse in Camden. It's in the Boykin Mill community, a major agricultural community settled in 1755. Mark Price is the owner of the Mill Pond Steakhouse.
We are located between Camden and Sumter in South Carolina. It's off of 261, and the town is actually called Boykin, South Carolina. And the town's been here, the pond's been here for over 200 years, and we sit on a 300-acre pond, which is a beautiful view. Plenty of wildlife, alligators, bobcats, foxes, a lot of waterfowl.
Located in a cluster of buildings, stores, and shops that look much as they might have looked when they were built in the 17 and 1800s, the restaurant buildings used to serve as the community's post office and general stores. Once inside, diners have access to a beautiful view of the Boykin Mill Pond and adjacent woods, a great habitat for local wildlife. Open for dinner only, Tuesday through Saturday, the Mill Pond Steakhouse has been described as a destination restaurant offering rustic elegance with southern hospitality and a one-of-a-kind dining experience. The restaurant features 40-day aged certified Angus prime and choice thick cuts of beef. The restaurant is also known for its dishes featuring locally grown and ground Boykin Mill grits and meal. Let's head into the kitchen to see what the chef has cooking for us today.
Hi, I'm Chef Jamie Hecker here at the Mill Pond Steakhouse here in Boykin, South Carolina. One thing we're known for is our stone ground, water ground grits. Today I'm preparing a fresh Alaskan halibut fillet. It's going to be lightly blackened with a little bit of Italian herb encrusted Havarti cheese. Also going to have some heirloom tomato involved, as well as fresh chives, topped with some beurre rouge, a little fried spinach, and some local country ham. So first, I already started the grits. Basically, the ratio to grits is about approximately 4 to 1. 1 cup of grits to about 4 cups of water. I like to add a little bit of butter, a little bit of hot sauce, some salt, some black pepper. So we'll heat up our pan for Alaskan halibut fillet, a little extra virgin olive oil. We have the fillet right here. It's going to get a little light dusting of our house-made blackening spice. This is our 6 salt blend, as we are known for a steakhouse. So a little bit of cracked black pepper. Pat it down just a little bit. Wait for your oil to heat up. And just lay the fillet right in. This takes approximately 2 to 3 minutes. You normally want to wait till there's a little bit of a smoking point in the pan. What you want, you're looking for a nice light brown with a hint of black on the top of your fillet. Flip it one time, that's what you're looking for, just a light blackening. Flip it once, goes in a 500-degree oven for approximately 3 or 4 minutes.
Halibut is a very light fish. It cooks very fast, so be gentle. Next, we're going to take our plate. We're going to add our grits. Again, that's about the thickness you want. You want them piping hot, so as soon as you put the cheese down, it's going to melt. So when you put the filet on top, while it's still hot, fresh out of the oven, it's also going to melt the cheese. A little bit of your heirloom tomato, concasse around the edge. What we have here is a local country ham, and what I've done is I've diced it up and I've deep fried it just a little bit. And that is about what you're looking for, right about there. Straight from the pan, right on top of the grits, on the cheese, while it's hot. Move the beurre blanc. Beurre means butter, blanc means white, so it's a white wine butter sauce. This is a red wine butter sauce. Very simple to make. Just a little ladle right on top. Nice, gorgeous color. And what we have here is fried spinach. I have fresh organic baby spinach. Again, I dunked it in the fryer. Has a nice little, very, very crisp texture to it. Just salted it right when it came out of the grease. Very light. This goes right on top. As a final touch, add a little bit of balsamic reduction just for color and a little bit of flavor just around the edge. And there you have it.
Those grits are ground today just as they have been for 200 years in a mill that operates in a building that once served as the community's cotton gin. The original mill was burned by Union troops in 1865. Thomas Webb is the mill's longtime proprietor, tour guide, and yodeler.
This is what we're making. It's a mixture of grits and cornmeal with a little bit of husk in it. So for that to be edible, it goes up by elevator, goes through a sifting screen upstairs, and it's sifted into grits and meal separate.
100-year-old turbines power the mill, spun by water rushing through the spillway behind the dam of the 300-acre mill pond. The turbines rotate metal gears with wooden teeth, which then turn a shaft that propel the ancient 1-ton millstones. The speed of the millstone rotation is determined by Webb, who turns a large wheel that raises or lowers a gate, controlling the volume of water that passes through the turbines. As corn from local farmers is fed into the grinding stones, a mixture of coarse and fine residue is dropped into a bin. A belt-driven elevator with small wooden paddles lifts the crushed corn into a sifter, which separates the product into preservative-free yellow grits and cornmeal. The final product is bagged by hand. Our Farmer Outstanding in the Field feature in this episode features South Carolina Farm Bureau President and family farmer David Winkles, who addressed the crowd recently at the 66th annual meeting of the South Carolina Farm Bureau Federation. Let's listen as he addresses the crowd about the grassroots accomplishments of the organization in 2009.
Of course, our plan of work began last year when we met to deliberate and determine our policy positions on issues affecting agriculture. We also launched our first Big Farm Show as a means for members to meet with agribusiness vendors and see new products. I'm proud of the serious interest of our women's leadership and young farmer and rancher programs have taken in telling the farm story and communicating that message to local officials. Each of those groups came to the Steakhouse last year to help advance Farm Bureau's causes and to rally support for our policies. Last winter, our young farmers and ranchers held one of their best attended and most meaningful conferences ever. I'm proud of the work of our young farmers and what they mean to the future of this organization. The Women's Leadership Committee does a good job promoting the organization and fostering young leaders. Of course, they sponsor the annual Youth Ambassador Competition, and they work closely with our Ag in the Classroom program. This year, they funded the design and distribution of activity booklets for younger children. The booklet was written and designed in-house. The annual Youth Leadership Conference is another place where young leaders are encouraged as they learn about marketing South Carolina commodities, about our policy development process, and local politics. Farm Bureau's Ag in the Classroom program is second to none in the country. Once again this year, we had a waiting list of teachers wanting to get into the Teachers Institute. Those who attended left as energized ambassadors for South Carolina agriculture. We've also enjoyed tremendous success with the Ag in the Classroom Combine Simulator. To date, more than 6,000 people have enjoyed that interactive experience. In addition to promoting our mission and message through our workshops, institutes, and conferences, Farm Bureau also tells the farmer's story through venues like the State Fair, where we donate more than $10,000 in scholarships to youth livestock competition winners. And our magazine and website continue to receive state and national recognition for quality communications tools. I hope that you've seen the better looking and easier to use website design that we launched this year. Our newest promotional tool is the new Our Farms, Our Future specialty license plate. This new Ag Tag promotes agriculture and raises money for the Ag in the Classroom Fund. It's one of the DMV's first mail-order tags. We continue to take Farm Bureau's future and sustainability seriously. This was the year our executive committee nominated a group of volunteer leaders to take a long-range view of the organization and recommend ways that we can position the organization for lasting growth and strength. That group spent a lot of time discussing generational differences, County Farm Bureau best practices, and ways to make our organization as efficient and effective as possible. Politically, our grassroots continue to do a tremendous job educating and informing elected officials about our industry. Of course, those issues are the ones defined through the grassroots policy development process, which begins at the county level and works its way through the voting delegate session here at our annual meeting. We were successful on a number of fronts this year in the General Assembly. The legislature allocated money to continue the South Carolina Grown campaign. The kickoff of that initiative was last summer at the Steakhouse. We got ahead of activists wanting to put livestock producers out of business through the passage and veto override of Bill S-453, which keeps counties from passing local ordinances dealing with the care or handling of livestock. That bill also keeps counties from charging new stormwater runoff fees in the future. And equally important, S-453 also prevents people outside a 2-mile radius from a farm from protesting agricultural permits. Water rights and surface water withdrawal continue to be big issues for our organization. One of the biggest issues underway now at state level is the tax study being performed by the Track Commission. Farm Bureau is working hard to stay on top of the issue of maintaining bona fide tax exemptions for agriculture.
Now is not the time to be driving energy costs up at all.
On the national level, we were active in the climate change debate, asking Congress not to pass meaningless or cost-prohibitive cap-and-trade legislation. I spoke at a rally in Greenville on that issue earlier in the year, and then American Farm Bureau President Bob Stallman and I held a news conference explaining why we opposed the cap-and-trade bills in Congress.
Just one scratch, match number 14.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of Voices of Agriculture from South Carolina. We thank you for watching. If you want more information about the equine industry in South Carolina, we hope you'll log on to scfb.org. There you'll find that information plus all the other information and stories we covered in this episode. But for now, from our Farm Bureau family to yours, I'm Reggie Hall, wishing each and every one of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.